The emergency council chamber hummed with tension as the holographic figure materialized in the center of the room. Ambassador Lyravan of the Alterian Coalition looked nothing like the humans seated around the oval table. Her tall, slender form glowed with soft blue light, and crystalline growths covered parts of her pale skin. But despite her alien appearance, the exhaustion and fear in her large eyes was unmistakably universal. General Kim Daeho sat perfectly still at the head of the table, his weathered hands folded as he studied the alien diplomat. Around him, Earth's top military leaders waited in silence. Admiral Park Minna checked her tablet occasionally, while Colonel Choi Sung-min leaned back in his chair, with arms crossed. Commander Yoon Sora took careful notes, and Director Lee Hae-won watched the alien with sharp, analytical eyes. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," Lyravan began, her voice carrying a musical quality, despite the translator's mechanical tone. "What I'm about to show you will be difficult to see." The lights dimmed as the holographic display expanded, showing images that made several humans shift uncomfortably in their seats. Planets that had once been green and blue now appeared as lifeless gray rocks floating in space. Cities that had housed millions were nothing but crater-filled wastelands. "This was Kalara Prime," Lyravan said softly, "home to 8 billion Kalarian people. They were artists, philosophers, healers. Their greatest achievement was a form of music that could calm violent storms." The image changed. "This is what remains after the Korthok Dominion finished with them." Commander Yoon stopped writing and looked up sharply. "How long ago?" "3 of your months," the alien replied. "Kalara Prime was the 17th world consumed this cycle. The Korthok don't just conquer territories. They strip everything useful from a planet and leave the rest to die. No survivors, no prisoners, nothing." Admiral Park leaned forward. "What exactly is this Korthak Dominion?" The display shifted again, showing massive black ships that looked more like mechanical insects than spacecraft. They call themselves the ultimate evolution of life. Every other species they encounter is considered inferior and marked for consumption. They've been expanding across the galaxy for over 2,000 years, and your coalition hasn't been able to stop them?" asked Director Lee. Lyravan's glow dimmed noticeably. "We tried everything. Military force, diplomatic negotiations, economic sanctions, even attempts at peaceful surrender. Nothing works. The Korthok don't want territory or resources in the way other species understand them. They want complete elimination of all non-Korthok life." General Kim spoke for the first time since the meeting began. "How many worlds have they taken?" "Over 300 confirmed. We estimate they've destroyed more than 50 billion sentient beings." The alien's voice cracked slightly. "My own homeworld Alteria fell 6 months ago. I was off planet when it happened. I'm one of perhaps 1,000 survivors from a population of 12 billion. The room fell completely silent. Several humans exchanged glances, but no one spoke. The remaining coalition forces are scattered across 17 refugee planets. Lyravan continued. "We have maybe 600 ships left from fleets that once numbered in the thousands. Every day, we lose more ground. Every day, more worlds go silent." Colonel Choi uncrossed his arms. "So why come to us? We're just one planet. You said yourself that you had thousands of ships." "Because we've studied your species," the alien replied, and for the first time, something like hope flickered in her expression. "For the past year, we've been analyzing every civilization we could find, looking for something we missed, some advantage we hadn't considered, and then we found Earth." "What did you find?" asked Commander Yoon. Lyravan hesitated, as if unsure how to explain. "Every other species in the galaxy developed differently than humans. We learned to cooperate, to avoid conflict, to solve problems through peaceful means. War, for most of us, is a rare and terrible thing that happens when all else fails." "That sounds reasonable," Admiral Park said carefully. It is reasonable. But it's also why we're losing. The alien's form brightened with intensity. Humans are the only species we've encountered that perfected warfare, while also achieving advanced civilization. You didn't just survive conflicts. You learned from them. You improved. You turned the art of war into a science. Director Lee frowned. You want us to fight your war for you? I want you to save what's left of the galaxy, Lyraven said simply. The Korthok are already moving toward this sector. Based on their expansion pattern, they'll reach Earth within 2 years whether you help us or not. The only question is whether you'll face them alone or with allies. General Kim stood slowly and walked to the large window overlooking the sprawling military complex below. Outside, personnel moved with quiet efficiency between buildings, unaware that their peaceful routine might soon change forever. You're asking us to become something we've spent 3 centuries trying to leave behind, he said without turning around. I'm asking you to become what you've always been, Lyraven replied. The species that survived ice ages and asteroid impacts. The people who split atoms and reached for the stars. The civilization that turned every challenge into an opportunity to grow stronger. The general turned back to face the alien ambassador. His expression was unreadable, but something had shifted in his posture. We'll need 72 hours to prepare. As Lyraven's image faded from the chamber, the human leaders sat in contemplative silence. They all knew what those 72 hours would bring. Across Earth and its colonies, systems that had remained hidden for decades would finally reveal their true purpose. The galaxy had asked for Earth's help. Soon, it would learn what that really meant. The transformation began exactly 18 minutes after General Kim Dae-ho gave the authorization code. Captain Nam Jae-ho was drinking coffee in his quarters aboard the UES Incheon when the ship's emergency klaxon sounded 3 long blasts. He had been expecting this moment for years, but his hands still trembled slightly as he reached for his communicator. All hands. This is the captain, he announced over the ship-wide system. Project Sleeping Dragon is now active. Report to battle stations and prepare for full combat configuration. Around him, the ship began to change. Walls that had appeared 2B simple metal panels slid away, revealing weapon control systems that hadn't been visible moments before. The Incheon had been disguised as a patrol vessel for 5 years. In reality, it carried enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. Lieutenant Kong Yujin rushed onto the bridge, as displays throughout the ship came alive with tactical information. Sir, we're receiving confirmation signals from all sectors. Every ship in the fleet is going active. Through the bridge windows, Nam could see other vessels undergoing similar transformations. The cargo ship Busan extended massive sensor arrays from hidden compartments in its hull. The passenger liner Soul's Pride revealed weapons ports that had been concealed behind decorative panels. Even the small courier ships were suddenly bristling with military equipment. On Earth, President An Soo-young stood before the Global Assembly with a speech that had been written 3 years ago, but never delivered. The assembled representatives from every nation listened in stunned silence as she explained what their world had truly been preparing for. For 300 years, humanity has chosen the path of peace, she said, her voice calm but firm. We built our civilization on cooperation, trade, and scientific advancement, but we never forgot the lessons of our past. We never forgot that peace must be protected by strength. As she spoke, massive structures began rising from locations around the globe. In the Sahara Desert, what everyone believed was the world's largest solar power installation revealed its true nature. The mirror arrays rotated and aligned, transforming into a planetary defense grid capable of striking targets in deep space. Commander Bae Young watched from the control center buried beneath the Sahara as his teams brought the weapon systems online. He had spent 15 years maintaining the fiction that this was simply a clean energy project. Now, the particle beam emplacements rose. from the sand like ancient monuments awakening from a long sleep. "All stations report ready," his chief technician announced. "We can target anything within 3 light hours of Earth." Similar scenes played out across the planet. The International Space Research Facility in Antarctica extended launch tubes that had been hidden beneath ice for decades. The deep ocean mining consortium revealed that their underwater installations were actually submarine shipyards, where vessels designed for void warfare had been constructed in secret. But the most shocking revelation came from humanity's colonial expansion program. Commander O. Tae-young, stationed at the Proxima Centauri colony, received orders to activate systems that colonists didn't even know existed. The agricultural domes that fed the settlement could be reconfigured as manufacturing centers within hours. The atmospheric processors doubled as orbital bombardment platforms. "How long have these systems been in place?" asked Dr. Lim Jong-soo, the colony's chief scientist, as weapon emplacements emerged from what he had believed were geological survey stations. "Since day one," O replied grimly. "Every colony ship, every exploration vessel, every trade mission has carried enough hidden firepower to level a planet. We learned a long time ago that the universe doesn't care about the peaceful." The alien monitoring stations scattered throughout human space detected the energy surges almost immediately. The Alterian coalition's surviving intelligence ships had been observing Earth for months, trying to understand humanity's true capabilities. What their sensors recorded in those first few hours defied everything they thought they knew about human civilization. Lyravin received the reports aboard the refugee ship Sanctuary, hidden in the outer regions of the Sol system. Her scientific advisors struggled to make sense of the data streaming in from their observation posts. Ambassador called her chief analyst, his crystalline features flickering with confusion. "The energy readings are impossible. A single planet cannot generate this much military potential while maintaining civilian infrastructure." "Show me," Lyraven commanded. The displays revealed Earth's transformation in real time, orbital platforms that had appeared to be simple. Communication satellites were unfolding into massive weapons platforms. Mining ships in the asteroid belt suddenly showed the sensor signatures of heavy cruisers. Even civilian transport vessels were revealing hidden armaments. "How many ships do they actually have?" the analyst asked in amazement. "I don't think they distinguish between military and civilian vessels the way we do," Lyraven realized. "Every human ship, every station, every installation has been designed to serve both purposes." The most disturbing discovery came when their sensors detected the true scale of human industrial capacity. The orbital shipyards around Earth weren't just building new vessels. They were mass-producing them, using manufacturing techniques that could turn raw asteroids into finished warships in a matter of days. Captain Han Subin commanded one of the new vessels rolling off the production lines. The UES Daegu had been completed in 72 hours, but it incorporated technology that was decades ahead of anything the Galactic Coalition possessed. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we're receiving deployment orders. The advanced scout groups are already moving toward Korthok space." Han nodded grimly. The Korthok Dominion had been monitoring human communications, intercepting fragments of military chatter and fleet movements. Their analysis suggested that humanity was mobilizing a modest defense force, perhaps a few hundred ships at most. They had no idea that those were just the scouts. Within 3 days of Lyraven's plea for help, humanity had revealed itself as the single most militarized civilization in galactic history. Every aspect of their peaceful society had been carefully designed to serve a greater purpose, the defense of everything they held dear. Admiral Jang Haijin stood on the bridge of the UES Busan and watched the enemy fleet approach through the tactical display. 200 Korthok ships moved in perfect formation toward the Nexus Point jump gate, their black hulls gleaming like mechanical insects against the star field. Her own force consisted of only 30 human vessels, But she felt no concern about the odds. The Korthok had studied human tactics for exactly 6 hours. Humanity had been perfecting warfare for 6,000 years. Enemy fleet, entering weapons range, reported Commander O. Tae-young from his tactical station. His fingers moved quickly across the control panels as he tracked each hostile ship. They're maintaining standard battle formation. Looks like they expect a conventional engagement. Of course they do, Admiral Zheng replied with a cold smile. They've only fought civilized species so far. Signal all ships. Execute pattern typhoon. The human fleet suddenly scattered in what appeared to be a panicked retreat. Ships broke formation and fled in different directions. Some heading for the asteroid field that bordered the system, others diving toward the gravity well of a nearby gas giant. To the Korthok commanders, it looked like their reputation had preceded them, and the humans were running in terror. Korthak Fleet Master Vext Vulan watched the display with satisfaction. Pursue and destroy. Show no mercy. These primitives must learn the price of interfering with the Dominion. The alien ships gave chase, their formations spreading out to follow the fleeing human vessels. This was exactly what Admiral Zheng had planned for. The Korthok were doing what every predator species did when they sensed weakness. They abandoned caution and went for the kill. Captain Han Subin commanded the destroyer Daegu as it led a group of Korthok ships deeper into the asteroid field. His crew worked with calm precision, weaving between the floating rocks, while their pursuers followed close behind. The aliens fired repeatedly, their energy weapons lighting up the darkness, but somehow the human ship always managed to stay just out of range. Sir, called Lieutenant Kim Nari from her sensor station. We're approaching Marker 7. Perfect timing, Han replied. I'll stop. Let them catch up. The Daegu suddenly killed its engines and drifted to a halt near what appeared to be just another chunk of space rock. The pursuing Korthok ships moved in for the kill, their weapons charging for a final devastating barrage. That was when the asteroid revealed its true nature. Hidden sensors detected the approaching enemy vessels and triggered systems that had been waiting in standby mode for weeks. The rocky exterior split open like a flower, revealing a massive weapons platform bristling with plasma cannons and missile launchers. 6 Korthok ships were destroyed in the first coordinated strike before they even realized what was happening. Similar traps activated throughout the asteroid field as more human ships led their pursuers into carefully prepared killing zones. What had seemed like random space debris became a coordinated network of hidden fortifications. The Korthok found themselves fighting not just the human fleet, but the battlefield itself. Impossible, breathed Fleetmaster Vextulen, as his forces were torn apart by weapons that materialized from empty space. How could they fortify an entire asteroid field without our sensors detecting it? His tactical officer's response was grim. Sir, the weapons platforms are using stealth technology we've never encountered. Our sensors show them as ordinary rocks until they activate. Back on the Busan, Admiral Zheng watched the battle unfold with professional satisfaction. The humans had spent months preparing this ambush, disguising military installations as natural debris and positioning them perfectly to create overlapping fields of fire. It was a tactic that required patience, planning, and the kind of three-dimensional thinking that came naturally to a species that had fought wars across planets, oceans, and eventually the void of space. Sir, Commander O reported, we're receiving surrender signals from multiple enemy vessels. Admiral Zheng's expression hardened. Scan for slave holds first. The results confirmed what they had suspected from intelligence reports. The Korthok ships weren't just warships, they were mobile prison camps. Thousands of alien civilians from conquered worlds were being held in horrific conditions aboard the enemy vessels. The surrendering Korthok weren't seeking mercy, they were trying to use their victims as human shields. Admiral Zheng opened a channel to broadcast on all frequencies. Her voice was calm, but carried an undertone that made even her own crew members straighten in their seats. "This is Admiral Jang Haijin of the United Earth Space Force. You have exactly 10 minutes to transfer all prisoners to our medical ships. Automated rescue pods are being deployed now. After that deadline passes, we will implement what humans call proportional response." The Korthok commanders debated among themselves, not understanding what proportional response meant. In their experience, warfare was simple: you conquered, or you were conquered. The concept of measured retaliation was foreign to them. They ignored the ultimatum. What happened next became a cautionary tale that spread throughout the galaxy. The remaining Korthok ships were systematically destroyed by weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Kinetic projectiles that changed direction in flight. Energy beams that passed through shields as if they didn't exist. Most terrifying of all, some enemy vessels simply vanished, as if they had been erased from reality itself. The Battle of Nexus Point lasted for hours and 17 minutes. When it was over, no Korthok ship remained intact, but every single prisoner had been safely transferred to human medical vessels. The alien refugees, many of whom had been captives for years, could barely comprehend what they had witnessed. Word of the human victory spread quickly through both sides of the conflict. The Galactic Coalition began to hope for the first time in years. The Korthok Dominion, meanwhile, began to realize they had encountered something they had never faced before. A species that was better at warfare than they were, the humans, had shown the galaxy what proportional response meant to a civilization that had once ended wars by splitting atoms. The news of Nexus Point reached the Korthok Dominion's core worlds within hours, and their response was swift and terrible. Supreme Warmaster Krexvaller stood in the command center of their largest fortress world, studying reports that defied everything he understood about warfare. "Impossible," he growled, his massive claws scraping against the metal console. "No species could destroy an entire fleet while suffering 0 casualties. The reports must be wrong." His tactical advisor, a smaller Korthok with nervous twitches, stepped forward carefully. "Warmaster, we have confirmed the data through multiple sources. The humans somehow turned empty space into a weapons platform. Our fleet walked into a trap that shouldn't have been possible to create." Krexvaller's fur eyes glowed with rage. For 2,000 years, the Korthok had been the ultimate predators of the galaxy. No species had ever matched their military might. The idea that some primitive world could challenge their dominance was unthinkable. "Mobilize everything," he commanded. "Every ship, every warrior, every weapon in the Dominion. We will show these humans what happens when someone dares to oppose us." Within days, the largest military force in galactic history began moving toward human space. Over 10,000 ships, ranging from massive dreadnoughts to swift attack vessels, formed a fleet that stretched across multiple star systems. It represented the combined military might of hundreds of conquered worlds, accumulated over centuries of expansion. General Kim Dae-ho received the intelligence reports in his command center on Earth. The displays showed the approaching armada in all its terrifying glory, but his expression remained calm as he studied the tactical projections. "They're bringing everything they have," observed Admiral Park Mina from her position at the strategic planning table. "Every available ship in their empire." "Good," Kim replied simply. "That was always the plan." Admiral Park smiled grimly. "Project Starfall is ready for deployment." What the Korthok didn't realize was that humanity had spent the past month doing what they did best: adapting, improving, and escalating. The ships that had fought at Nexus Point were already obsolete, replaced by vessels that incorporated technology the aliens couldn't even imagine. Commander Lim Jong-soo sat in the pilot's seat of the experimental ship, Gangneung, as it prepared for humanity's most ambitious military operation. The vessel looked ordinary from the outside, but hidden within its hull was a device that would change warfare forever. A fold space drive that could move ships instantly across vast distances. All systems green, reported his navigator, Lieutenant SCO Minji. Fold space coordinates, locked in. Take us through, Lim ordered. The Gangnung vanished from its position near Earth and materialized deep within Korthok territory, emerging less than 1 light hour from their heavily defended homeworld. The arrival sent shockwaves through every sensor station in the system. On the command ship of the approaching Korthok fleet, War Master Krexvaller stared at the impossible readings. How did they get there? No species possesses fold space technology. His science officer's claws trembled as he studied the data. War Master, the energy signature is unlike anything we've seen. They're using some form of space-time manipulation that our physicists said was impossible. What the Korthok didn't know was that humanity's International Space Research Consortium had never been studying peaceful applications of advanced physics. For decades, they had been weaponizing the fundamental forces of the universe itself, hiding their progress behind the facade of civilian research projects. As the massive alien armada approached what they believed to be Earth's location, they found nothing but empty space and a single message broadcasted on all frequencies. Admiral Park's voice carried clearly across the void. You're looking in the wrong place. We learned long ago that the best defense is bringing the war to your enemy's home. The Battle of Korthok Prime began at exactly 1432 Universal Standard Time and ended 17 minutes later. Humanity didn't fight the way other species expected. While the Korthok fleet searched desperately for Earth, human forces appeared simultaneously throughout their empire. Ships materialized in star systems that should have been impossible to reach, striking military installations with surgical precision. Captain Nam Jiho commanded a squadron of the new fold space-capable vessels as they systematically dismantled Korthok infrastructure. The UES Inchin could appear anywhere in the galaxy within seconds, strike its target, and vanish before enemy forces could respond. Target destroyed, reported his weapons officer, as another Korthok supply depot was reduced to debris. Moving to next coordinate. The aliens tried to mount a defense, but they were fighting an enemy that could attack from any direction at any time. Their massive fleet, designed to overwhelm opponents through sheer numbers, became a liability as human forces struck the undefended worlds they had left behind. Most devastating of all was humanity's use of the Korthok's own tactics against them. For centuries, the aliens had relied on enslaved populations from conquered worlds to maintain their infrastructure. When human liberation forces freed these prisoners and provided them with weapons, the Korthok Empire began collapsing from within. Commander Yoon Sora led the assault on Korthok Prime itself, where billions of enslaved aliens were held in massive prison complexes. Her Marines moved through the facilities with precision that spoke of months of planning and preparation. All prisoners secured, she reported, as the last transport ships departed the dying world. The Korthok home fleet is trying to return, but our gravity disruption fields are keeping them locked out of fold space. The irony was perfect. The same technology that had allowed humanity to appear anywhere in the galaxy now prevented the Korthok from returning to defend their own worlds. Ships that had taken days to reach human space would need months to return home through normal propulsion. By the time they arrived, there would be nothing left to defend. The Korthok Dominion, built over 2 millennia of conquest, had been dismantled in less than 3 weeks by a species they had considered primitive. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as humanity demonstrated why they were the only species to survive ice ages, world wars, and their own nuclear weapons. When the fury of Earth was finally unleashed, it rewrote the very rules of galactic warfare. 3 months had passed since the fall of the Korthok Dominion, and the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. Ambassador Lyraven stood once again in Earth's Defense Command, but the atmosphere was completely different from her first desperate visit. Through the massive windows, she could see the remnants of the Korthok fleet in stable orbit around Earth, not as conquerors, but as prisoners awaiting trial. General Kim Dae-ho sat at the same table where he had first heard her plea for help, but now he looked tired. The weight of what humanity had done was visible in his eyes. Around him, the same military leaders who had authorized Earth's awakening now faced decisions that would shape the future of galactic civilization. The final reports are complete, Director Lee Hae-won announced, reading from his tablet. 47 Korthok worlds have surrendered unconditionally. Their military capacity has been completely destroyed. Over 3 billion enslaved beings from 200 different species have been liberated and are being returned to their homeworlds. Admiral Park Minna looked up from her own reports. The war crimes tribunals are ready to begin. We have evidence of genocide against over 50 different civilizations. Colonel Choi Sung-min shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The psychological evaluation teams say most of the Korthok soldiers are having trouble understanding why we didn't just execute them all. Apparently, mercy is a foreign concept to their species. Commander Yoon Sora, who had led many of the liberation missions, spoke quietly. The freed prisoners keep asking us why we came to save them. Some of them had been slaves for generations. They didn't think anyone cared about their suffering. Lyra Van listened to these reports with a mixture of gratitude and growing unease. What she was about to propose would change everything, and she wasn't sure how the humans would react. General Kim, she began carefully, I've been asked to present an offer from the Galactic Council. We're listening, Kim replied. The alien ambassador's form flickered with nervous energy. The Council has voted unanimously to offer humanity complete leadership of the Alliance Defense Force. Some members have suggested a more comprehensive arrangement. Admiral Park raised an eyebrow. They want us to rule the galaxy. In practical terms, yes, Lyra Van admitted. After what you accomplished against the Korthok, most species believe that human military leadership is the only way to ensure lasting peace. Some have even suggested that human oversight of planetary governments might prevent future conflicts. The room fell silent. The human leaders exchanged glances, but no one spoke immediately. Finally, Colonel Choi leaned forward. With all due respect, Ambassador, that's not who we are. We've seen what happens when we fully embrace our nature as warriors, added Commander Yoon. It's necessary sometimes, but it shouldn't become permanent. Power like that changes people, and not always for the better. General Kim stood slowly and walked to the window, overlooking the sprawling military complex below. Outside, personnel moved with their usual quiet efficiency. But now they wore the satisfied expressions of soldiers who had completed an impossible mission. The question was, what came next? You're asking us to become the very thing we fought against, he said, without turning around. The Korthok ruled through strength and fear. They made decisions for other species without asking what those species wanted. How would we be different? Lyra Van's glow dimmed as she considered his words. Because you would rule with wisdom and compassion instead of cruelty. Would we? Kim turned back to face her. Humans have a saying, power corrupts. We've spent 3 centuries learning to control our violent instincts. If we became the galaxy's rulers, how long before we started making decisions based on what we think is best instead of what others want for themselves? Captain Nam Ji-ho, who had been quiet until now, spoke up from his position near the back of the room. During the war, I saw what our weapons could do. I watched planets surrender without firing a shot because they were terrified of us. That kind of fear, ... It's useful in war, but it's poison for peace. Admiral Park nodded in agreement. We've already changed the balance of power in the galaxy just by existing. Every species now knows that Earth has the capacity to destroy entire civilizations in a matter of days. That knowledge alone will prevent most conflicts. So what do you propose? The Raven asked. General Kim returned to his seat and looked directly at the alien ambassador. Humanity will serve as the Alliance's rapid response force. When diplomatic solutions fail, When innocent lives are threatened by aggressors like the Korthok, call us. We'll come, and we'll end the threat. But governance? That's better left to species who didn't spend their evolutionary history perfecting the art of warfare. You would rather be the weapon that stays sheathed until needed, Lyraven said, understanding dawning in her expression. Exactly, Kim replied. Peace is fragile. It requires both the will to maintain it and the strength to defend it. We'll provide the strength. The rest of you can focus on building the peace. The alien ambassador processed this response with growing respect. And if we need you, then you'll have us, Admiral Park answered firmly. But only when you truly need us. We won't interfere in your politics, or your trade disputes, or your cultural differences. We'll only act when someone threatens the innocent and peaceful species can't protect themselves. As Lyraven prepared to depart, she couldn't help but ask one final question. Do you regret what you had to become? The violence? The destruction? The human leaders looked at each other, sharing an understanding born from difficult choices and heavy responsibilities. Commander Yoon answered for them all. We regret that it was necessary, but we don't regret protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. That's what humans do. We become the monsters, so others don't have to. Months later, as rebuilt worlds flourished under the protection of the Human Defense Pact, children across the galaxy would learn about the day Earth answered a desperate plea for help and changed the course of history. They would grow up in a universe where peaceful species could pursue art, science, and philosophy without fear, knowing that somewhere among the stars, humanity stood ready to defend them. The galaxy had called for aid, and Earth had unleashed its fury. In doing so, humanity had found its true purpose among the stars, not as conquerors, but as guardians of all who chose peace over war.